Patch notes are here for the upcoming balance update on 7/16. There are a couple of other things happening on this day. Abe is probably coming out with the summer event, and we're also getting a new ML5, likely Title Rift Elvira, if we assume that we're not getting like a custom or something, but it's probably just a new ML5. So 2 new units, 1 limited, 1 ML, are probably going to shake up the meta a ton as well, but let's take a look at who is getting buffs first. So we have 3 ML5s, Lidica, Charlotte, and Corvus. One of these is probably getting an ML5 EE too, because they always give an ML5 EE whenever we get a balance patch. Jenua, Aki, Blooming Lidica, Schniel, Inferno Khawazu, Select the Flower, which is Lidica's artifact, or Blooming Lidica's artifact, and then Elegai Candle, which is, I think, Knockbull's artifact, but it's an offensive artifact. We'll see what happens. First up, Faithless Lidica, S1, hit chance to Death Break. This is just nice because you don't really care about the hit chance. This just gives you more damage. S2, so now you dispel 2 buffs no matter what, you don't have to crit. And instead of getting a CR push 25% per target, you get an extra turn. This makes her usable in Guild War. This also makes her S2 work if they're missing a unit, like if your Fumir went before your Lidica or something, just as an example. If they're missing a unit, whatever, you'll be able to use S2. And then also inflicts Laceration. So Laceration is Riza's unique debuff. We're going to go over here. Laceration makes them take 15% more damage and inflicts injury based on how much damage they took. So makes her pretty strong into HP scalers, because you'll, like, even if they survive your cleave, they'll be like full injured. And then her S3 now gives her stealth, gives her flexibility with her artifact. You don't have to go Guiding Light, you can go Renewed Will, you can go Elegai Candle, you can go whatever you want and still be safe against stuff like Zeo. So overall, really good buffs for her, I think. Also, her Soulburn only costs 10 now. This is pretty sick because you don't, like, there's quite a few ways to get souls on turn 1 that aren't just book. Could be make some stuff easier to set up for you if you want. So you don't need to build crit chance anymore. You can just go top speed and she's usable. Flexibility and artifact choice now, plus the new Laceration debuff and Death Break on S2. Really, really nice. Extra turn on her S2 combined with her lower cooldown S3 means that you cycle through your stuff a lot faster. This is effectively a 3-turn cooldown because you have the extra turn on the S2. I think she is the best candidate to get the MO5 EE because you look at her base speed, it's not good. It's 114. So with the MO5 EE, assuming it's 10 speed, you will be able to get up to 122 base speed. So that will make her more competitive with the other openers. Depends if they want her to be competitive with other openers, because she is pretty oppressive generally whenever she is allowed to be an opener. Her S3 is very, very strong, and Laceration on her S2 is honestly kind of scary to me. Little Queen Charlotte. She auto crits now, so you can take all of that crit chance and move it into either damage or some survivability. And then also her S3, of course it does a bit more damage now besides just the auto crit, but if you soul burn for 10, it increases her hit chance by 100% when using this skill, and her crit chance, or her self imprint, was crit chance before and now it's attack. So pretty much just a big buff to her damage, because you don't need any crit chance, that's more stats. And then the successful, the hit chance thing rather, is really, really nice. One thing is, if we assume that she's getting the ML5 EE, maybe something that makes her not need Tachi or Strike of Aspiration, because then that gives her more artifact flexibility. You can, into like, it's more of a Guild War Arena thing, but if it's RB or RNL with Setsuka, you'd be able to hit 120 hit chance and hit them like through Setsuka. Though she does have the issue of, like, she is light. RB is gonna evaporate her, RNL is going to target her if you're in like Guild War Arena, that sort of thing. So you do kind of need her to like take her turn. I don't think she'll be very usable into RNL. I think she, for RTA, probably gonna need, like, be an aggro pick. I don't think she's a turn 2 pick. You're going to need her to take her turn, or she's probably going to die even with like those changes. She does still have like her passive, which is like, you know, 20% damage reduction for everybody except for herself, and then she gets CR pushed when other people get hit, but I do think you kind of want her to go first. And she does still have her splash on her S3 which is going to be nice. You can gear her with more attack now that you don't need crit and get more splash damage. So I do think she's going to be pretty nice for Guild War Arena RTA. We will see. I think she'll be okay / good for aggro. Dark Corvus, one of my favorite buffs here. He's immune to debuff switch threat movement now, so that's Fear, that is Sleep, and then this is just the wording change. It's the same effect, just clean up the wording a bit. He ignores damage sharing. This means that you can nurse Dark Corvus or Salome Dark Corvus a lot more things in Guild War. You can just punch straight through Estelle. You can punch through any sort of damage sharing. This is a really, really strong buff for like Guild War. And then they also buffed his S3 damage, but only if you're not soul burning. So basically, for anybody, I've seen people get confused by this, his base damage is up. If you don't soul burn, it's up. If you soul burn, it is the same as it is currently, because he already does 1 billion damage on his soul burn, but this makes it so that, you know, in the situation you don't have enough souls, you'll still be able to deal more damage and probably kill what you're looking at, unless it's like an insanely tanky thing. So this is just really, really good. This makes him usable into a lot more stuff. You can run him into RNL without Sweet Miracle now and still have him take his turn. Before, you would use a lot of, like, you know, Salome on Sweet Miracle, you copy Dark Corvus, use Dark Corvus S3, and Dark Corvus just sits there feared the entire time. Now, he will actually be able to do something when he takes his turn, which is really, really nice. And then the damage sharing thing is insane. I just think this is a really good buff for him. I think he is the least likely candidate to get the ML5E because this is already good enough, I think. We'll see what they do, though. It's probably going to be Faithless Lidica. Jenua, so now his attack buff happens before his initial hit on S1. Before he would attack, then get attack buff, and then extra attack. Now he'll have it for both slight boost to his S1 damage. When his enemy is defeated, he gets an extinction on his S3. And also, the additional damage proportional to the caster's attack doesn't need a crit anymore. I think you still do need to hit them, though. I always forget exactly how the wording goes, but the extinction can be nice. I guess, like, I don't think people do Sea Phantom that often anymore, but if you're doing, like, Sea Phantom Politis plus Jenua, you can't get walled out by, you know, revive stuff anymore. He will just punch through things. And then he also gets a bit of lifesteal on his S3. It's not, you know, heal proportional to his attack. We'll see what the scalings are. You'd assume that this is more healing overall. And then pretty much just damage buff plus extinction. I think it's going to be decent. It's going to depend a lot on Sea Phantom and then what he's fighting. There's the notable thing that greater attack buff when you soul burn is S1. So greater attack buff S1 into S3 might probably kill squishy Arby's, and you can just one-shot him through his thing. And then we have Aki. So Aki is one that's this is actually a lot bigger than people think. So he has detonation damage increase on his S1, S3, whatever. This 3-turn cooldown is really, really good because the way that Aki works, you get his barrier with his artifact, and you can soul burn 3 times for free. So you can go, you S3, S1, S1, and then currently you would S1 again one last time without soul burn. But now, because it's 3 turns, you can go S3, S1, S1, S3. And you won't be able to soul burn the last one, but if you have like a Tag of Hells on your team or something, you would be able to soul burn again. Or even then, it's like you would be able to at least S3 instead of S1, and S3 does considerably more damage. One thing is, before, you don't really see this anymore, but the Fumir, Frieren, Nodos defense, you would do Sea Phantom, Aki, plus Bossarunka, and one of the ways you could cheese that out was just have immunity on both Frieren and Nodos, and then just try and like resist everything. That doesn't really work that well anymore because of the ability to, like, he gets walled out by immunity less, basically, to summarize. So that is really, really nice for Aki. I think this is a lot bigger than people are expecting, and of course the detonation damage increase will be very, very nice for him. Blooming Lidica, same unit, just a little bit better. Her S2 cooldown is a little bit lower and a bit more damage on her S3, hitting, you know, damage breakpoints to kill things on the single target nuke attacks is always really, really nice. So we'll just see what her damage is like. Schniel is an interesting one. So they removed his cleanse on his S1, And then now it increases the combat readiness of himself and the ally with the highest attack. His S2, I didn't even know it increased his max HP. Well, that's gone now. Now he dispels 1 debuff each from 2 allies, so kind of RNG cleanse. And his S2 extra attack gives Indomitable now. This is the defense plus Ephra's one that Empyrean ONF gives. His S3 gives him a barrier to himself, and then 5,000 additional damage regardless of whether the attack hits. And if he has Indomitable, it greatly increases damage. This will kind of partially depend on how much the damage increases. It was 12,000 max before, so I'm expecting, 10,000, maybe 15 if they really want him to do a ton of damage with Indomitable. So, the notable Venom unit right now is Perfumer Biblis. And the question is just, is he even good into her? Because you had the DDR problem before, where what happens if DDR just doesn't press S2, doesn't press S3? Schniel, like, S1 versus DDR S1 was, like, questionable. If DDR was honestly just better. Perfumer Biblis, her S3 is insanely strong, no doubt about that. But her S2 is also insanely strong. And so is her S1. Her S1, S2 combined probably still outdoes Schniel, honestly. So I don't think he's going to be super good into Perfumer Biblis. Maybe I'm wrong, but in Guild War Arena, he should be nice into her because, she'll force proc him. At this S3 additional damage, regardless of whether the attack hits, is going to be nice if you're also fighting evasion stuff. Pretty much in the situations that he gets to get off his S2, which is low in RTA, he's going to be a lot better. And then we have Inferno Khawazu, so now he has the damage limit on his S2, a bit more CR push. You can also toss in the Spear of Purification thing if you're not using Tachi. S3 scope cooldown is decreased by 2 turns, so his S2 also heals him. This is roughly 60% of his attack, and you get Vigor before the heal. You're going to be healing probably a few thousand HP, and this is going to make him take essentially 3 hits to kill. So it's a little bit more than just, 2 hits, assuming we're going to pretend stuff additional damage doesn't exist. The CR push is really high. Maybe you have some builds where you build him fast, then he cuts. I don't have too much faith in this unit, though. We will see. His S3 also, his S3 is a 3-turn cooldown, I'm pretty sure, so you would be able to just spam your S3 if you're somehow able to take another turn. We're going to pull up a Wazoo, and it is 4 turns, 3 turns. Yeah, so. And then also you get 10 souls now on his EE instead of a bit more CR push, because this one, they moved the EE into his base kit. So you can basically double S3 for free, pretty much, but his other EE increases the 1 extra burn on his S3, that might just be better. Artifacts like the Flower, a bit more CR pushback, lower duration on the cooldown. This is matching Lidica's, buff on the 3 to 2 turn thing. So just another little nudge for Lidica, a bit more Death Break chance on Elder Guide Candle, an option for Faithless Lidica if you do not have Renewed Will. So overall, honestly, not bad. I think the Dark Corvus buffs are obviously insane for him. Aki is really, really good for him as well. It's a significant boost to his damage, even beyond just the detonation damage increase, because he gets another S3 in for free. Blooming Lidica, Slate Nudge, Schniel, I don't know. And then Inferno Khawazu, a little bit. Biggest winners, Faithless Lidica, I think it's the ML5s. Little Queen Charlotte's a little bit up on the table. I think she'll be good in aggro. But the ML5s, Aki, are my biggest winners of this patch. I think Jenua has some potential. Schniel is kind of whatever. And then Blooming Lidica, we will see. But that is it for the balance patch. Again, ML5Es probably going to Faithless Lidica, and usually there's one more to one not on the balance patch. Maybe a Tywin. I'm thinking a Tywin. A little plus 5% to all of his S3 effects. Sounds kind of pathetic. Hopefully he gets a bit more than that.